you about this very important one too, which is connected, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So this book, Tibetan Yoga Principles and Practices, is really to introduce what is Naldrowa, which is the Tibetan translation of the Sanskrit word yoga, which means basically to unite with or to join with the natural state. So the natural state, not just meaning our ordinary lives, but actually the state of our natural enlightenment, our natural awareness, which somehow gets eclipsed or hidden by our preoccupations and everything else in life. So basically Tibetan yoga, when we're looking at this, is the methods, the techniques, the practices involved with unveiling our true nature. And that works with the physical body. So while we often think of Buddhism as being a practice of the mind, the Tibetan yogic practices are very much working with the body, with our physical bodies as we experience them, but even more importantly, with a kind of hidden dimension of our physical body, which I think, Dr. Nidhu, you outlined beautifully in this book, which is the so-called Vajra body. So this is this adamantine or diamond body, which is the energy body. You could also refer to it. Mm-hmm. So by connecting with that kind of hidden dimension of our own anatomy and our physicality, we connect with a hidden dimension of our own mind and our own consciousness, which is always there. It's always present, and yet somehow or other, we are often somehow not aware of it. So the Tibetan yogic system that I describe in this book, it's talking about the physical practices, which we'll talk about a little bit later with the different degrees of practice of training the body in order to unveil the enlightened mind. But in this particular book, I also outline the so-called six yogas or six dharmas of Naropa, as they're often referred to, but they also refer to six kind of yogic practices, also connected with a female Mahasiddha Niguma, also connected with the female Mahasiddha Sukhasiddhi, and also within the system that you represent, Dr. Nida, the Yutok Nintik also has its system of six yogas that was also transmitted to Yutok, as far as I understand, from a yogini. So interestingly, we often refer to the six yogas of Naropa, but in reality, we have three other systems of six yogas that were taught initially by yoginis, by female messengers, if you will, who are conveying these essential practices of the Vajrayana path. So for those who are not familiar with them, these are the foundation of the six yogas, is the yoga of inner heat, the Tummo, which essentially ignites, you could say, the experience of the inner Vajra body, this bliss body, as opposed to, if we want to call it that, the pain body, the body that suffers, the body that gets caught up in emotional and mental entanglement, the karmic body, yes. Body, yeah. So here we have it's unveiling the bliss body through the yoga of heat, and then the auxiliary practice that you've written about a lot in your book, Karma Mudra, which is a way of intensifying that bliss and that heat and that vitality in order to enter into the clear light yogas that are not just during our waking experience, but also during sleep, the dream yogas that allow us to take control of the unconscious and the subconscious mind in order to travel to kind of enlightened Buddha fields and other dimensions of reality that we don't experience as easily in our everyday living. And then also the yogas of Poa, the transference of consciousness at the time of death. And then the intermediate state of the Bardo Yoga, which refers generally to the period after death, but of course refers to all of the various Bardos, the kind of intermediary liminal states that exist throughout our lives. So this book is really outlining, in that sense, the whole Tantric Buddhist path, and starting, of course, with before traditionally entering into the practices of the physical yogas, the practices of Kerim and Zogrim, which is the so-called creation and completion phases. So this book is essentially focusing on the completion phases, but the first chapters are working very much with this idea of working with the mind and the creative imagination. So maybe you could speak a little bit more about this kind of the gateway, if you will, into Tantric Buddhism being the kirin, the so-called development or creation phase. What is that? How do we use our imaginations in order to
Yeah.
connect with reality, not with just our fantasies?
Yeah. So I think when we talk about Tibetan yoga, I think it's good to we know what yoga is, firstly. So like today in the West, when we say yoga, everybody says, "Oh yes, yoga, exercise." It is like it has to do something physical movement, physical exercise, which combined with breathing and then asanas, postures, that's like common people understand about yoga. So that's why, when Indian tradition, when they say yoga, so everybody knows it's like it's for body exercise, for
Mm,
fitness, for energy balance, for inner peace and this thing.
mm,
It's everything coming kind of physically. But then in Tibetan tradition, when we say yoga, let's say we have guru yoga. Actually, it seems physically nothing to do, It's more like a meditation or contemplation, right? So like your energy unification,
mm,
your energy to the guru and then to the Buddha and then to the, all enlightened energy or whatever is. So that's why I think this, there's some confusions, that's why
mm,
when Tibetan masters this, oh, there's a guru yoga teaching, or there is a dream yoga teaching, and clear light yoga. So everybody goes with yoga mat, and then they listen to Tibetan teachers. There's no physical exercises,
right.
then they get upset.
Yeah.
They say, where is the yoga?
Right.
I thought the dream yoga is like, we do lots of exercises, and
Mm,
then we enter in the dream and these things.
mm-hmm,
So that's why, but also in Indian tradition, if you talk about Ashtanga yoga,
mm,
8 limbs, right?
mm-hmm,
Eight limbs, or so we in Tibetan we translate more yanlag. Yanlag Je means 8 branches too. So then it's like 8 kind of yogas. So
mm-hmm,
then there's the physical part, and then there's a breathing part, and also there's just the mental part, samadhi,
mm-hmm,
contemplation of deep meditation part, and
mm-hmm,
that is called yoga.
mm,
So that's why I think in Indian tradition, of course, we have many yogas, like visualization, energy working, like Kundalini, Ashtanga, there, Hatha yoga, many of these. But I think when we say Ashtanga, 8 branches, then
mm,
like 8 approaches of the yoga, 8 different
mm,
types of yoga. So in Kalachakra Tantra, we have Jotu, is like 6 limbs,
mm-hmm.
which is very similar to Ashtanga.
Yes.
So I think this kind of understanding is very important, So the word of yoga in Tibetan we call Nel Jur, like you said.
Mm-hmm,
Nel means Nalma. Nalma means the purity, the pure, like the primordial state, the pure, like
mm,
original version,
mm,
Nalma. Jorwa means you achieve that, you can union like this kind of fake our self state can reunion the
mm,
original state,
mm.
something like that. That's
Yeah.
called the Nenjur. So that's why the meaning itself is in like common translation, yoga is like union, right?
Right.
So union, and then in this case is like we union, our ordinary self or karmic self unions with the Buddha state,
Mm-hmm.
Buddhahood, Buddha
Right.
nature,
Right.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be the exact explanation of Nel Jur, the word of yoga, how
Mm,
we can understand in the Tibetan, Tantric Buddhism.
mm,
So then how to approach that, So our goal is we need to, how do you say, we need to discover our Buddha nature,
mm-hmm.
and then we need to emerge with that, right? So
Yeah.
that's like, emerging your original state.
Mm-hmm.
That's Nel Jor,
Right.
Nalma Jorwa.
Right.
And so in this case, I think we have really different approach. So we can do the physical approach. So that's why
Mm,
also in the Tibetan, Tibetan Tantric Buddhism, we have physical exercises like which you mentioned here, the,
mm.
you know, like asana, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
asana, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's the jumping yoga. You can show
Yeah.
us
I'll
that
show
photo.
those. And I, yeah,
The,
that's true. One of the,
this physical exercise part too. So we can,
yeah. So we
yeah,
have,
exactly, yeah, this one,
yeah,
yeah,
physical exercises,
yeah,
and then the very
yeah,
distinctive.
exactly. There are physical exercises, so we do have these ones too.
Mhm.
Yeah, the jumping yoga or BEP,
Yeah.
And so it's a really like kind of very intense or very vigorous exercises, in Tibetan yoga. It's not we ignore the physical part, and we do have the physical part. And the same way, in Indian tradition, there is pranayama, so we call it the lungjur. So we have the breathing exercise too. So there is the physical one, how to reach our Buddha nature through the body training. When we call it the body training, of course, it's called working through our channels. And then breathing exercises are working through lung energy, the wind energy. And then, how do you say, training through the tigle or the essential drops, then there's some other special practices. So somehow, how to reach that Buddha nature. You can reach physically, you can reach energetically, and you can reach mentally
also.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we call it three doors, no, in Tibetan. It means body, speech, mind. There are three doors. And so if you enter those three doors, you can enter from the body door. Speech door is the same like energy or mind door, but the goal is the same. You have to reach the Buddha nature.
Exactly.
The awakened state, right? So that's why I think the yoga, we should understand yoga is much more than asanas, just physical movement and exercises. It's really like yoga includes everything. And then like you're asking me about this creation part, and then in the old Tibetan Buddhist school, we call Maha Yoga, Anu Yoga, Ati Yoga. So it's called like three advanced yogas. So in the Maha Yoga, again, we are doing more meditation, more focus. We don't focus much on physical exercises. Because actually in the Maha Yoga, I think it's a very kind of, how do you say, process our emotions, all our inner emotions, hidden emotions. And some people, actually, I like this expression. Longchenpa said, angry people should practice more Maha Yoga. Some people, they have nature of anger, So then if you imagine yourself as a restful deity, then that is the moment that you express that inner anger, right? If you repress anger, it's harmful for yourself. If you express somebody else, it's not good for somebody else. So then the best way is during the meditation, and you embody the force of the deities, or your channels are manifesting as the deities, and then your energy is flowing like as the mantras, then your mind is free from aggression and anger and all the things. So somehow that's why I like this. Maha Yoga is antidote for anger, and Anu Yoga is the antidote for a desire, craving, attachment, and then Ati Yoga is an antidote for ignorance. So these three advanced yogas are kind of like medicines
for the three so-called
three
inner
mental poisons.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have we have many poisons, mental poisons. You can call them poisons or contamination, but then we need to have an antidote, and antidotes are called yogas too, So through those methods, and then we can achieve the Buddha nature, right? So that's why, I think this kind of understanding, it's very important. Otherwise, yoga, yoga is equal to exercise.
Yeah.
You see, so that kind of confusion, I hope, the good thing is everybody knows about yoga. It's kind of spiritual exercise, physical movement, and I think that's good.
Yeah.
But now we need to go to next level, to really understand the deep meaning of the yoga.
Yeah, and I think in that way, what's wonderful about the Tibetan yoga system, it kind of begins where most yoga classes end. In a certain sense, where it's just asana, then there might be shavasana, relaxing in relaxation pose, but really all of the Tibetan yogas are sort of taking that as the foundation. That relaxation then allows the movement into these deeper states of consciousness, and the deeper, as we can see, the Tibetan yogic practices kind of go beyond what a lot of the Indian asana practices are involved with. And I think one of the things I think is also often misunderstood. So much of the Tibetan yoga has often been considered so secret and hidden, and so there's always, it's a kind of taboo even to talk about the yogas of inner fire, the yogas of Tummo, the karma mudra. All of this is considered so highly secret. But one of the things I really like what you did, with this book, is actually talking about a self-healing yogic system, training the body, but it's almost like a medical system within the Kalachakra Tantra that was a bridge to spiritual practice, because as you explain it, without a healthy body, it's very difficult to connect with the higher states of consciousness.
So, when we do like a mantra, of course, normally we talk about spiritual mantras, like Buddhist mantras, deity mantras. But then in mantra, we have some type of mantras that are called the healing mantras. So which you can't say it's a Buddhist or non-Buddhist. It's just a healing mantras. There's a mantra against a headache. There's a mantra, against the joint pain. A mantra against digestion problems. These things. So it's kind of medical healing mantras. So I often say, it's not people need to jump into the Buddhist mantra and then you like promise to finish like 100,000 times or 1 million mantras and then you get stressed. So sometimes I'm telling people just to try out this kind of healing mantras. If they really work, and then you make experiences, and then mantra works, and then what mantra means. Mantra means mind protection, and it really protects your mind. You make an experience, and then you learn other mantras. It really makes sense. Like my little boy Kesar, sometimes he has some sleeping issues, so I give him a mantra, sleeping mantra. And it works very well. And now I ask him, he's only 10 years old. I said, oh, mantra works? He said, oh, yeah, it really works. For him, it's same like a medicine. He takes the medicine, he falls asleep. He does the mantra, he falls asleep. So I think that kind of, like you are saying, bridging, it's very important. And that's why also in the yoga, I think this kind of healing yoga. So you have some issues, this Nejang, we have 24 exercises, 24 exercises. Because of 24 points on our human body, and then somehow this is a kind of like yoga and self massage, combination, kind of like massage and yoga combined together. It's a very easy, very simple practice. So when you do these things, and then many people, they can experience that kind of healing result. And then they know yoga is not only making some postures, actually it's a healing. We can find the balance and harmony and this and that. So that's why, as you said, like when we have the kind of medical studies and, medical, practices, then somehow, from there to bridging in the spiritual dimension, I think it's very important.
Yeah. No, as you said, it's sort of a different level of the body that you connect with. I mean, the Nejang practices are helping to resolve many physical illnesses and ailments, and yet naturally, then that leads, to the Lujong, to using the body training in a more, or as you said in the Yuto Nintik, you have then the whole system of the trokor, of the so-called magical wheel, that can then really unveil this hidden dimension of our physical mind and body.
So in the Tibetan, one very common yoga is called the Lujong. Lujong means like a body exercises, right? Then we have another one similar, Lojong. Lojong means mind training. You see, so we have the mind training, we have the body training, right? And so this mind training is very much a focus in the sutra teachings, It's a very like sutra view mind training. It's a great teaching. And then the Lujong is more focused in tantric teachings, because then Lujong is like body training, body exercise. Because, and then normally some teachings, they consider Lujongs are more like preparation, So you do the preparation, you kind of have, the basic movements and exercises, this. And then after Lujong, then you could enter in the Zalong Tulkur. So that's the one you are talking, the secret one.
The ones
many images. The highly secret, and that's called the Zalong Tulkur. So Za is the channels, Lung is the energy, Tulkur is the like magic wheel, the magic wheel. That's like a why they call it the magic wheel? Because it's very dynamic. And then, also the physical one, the Indian yoga and Tibetan yoga is a little bit different, because Tibetan yoga, it's a repetitive, right? Very dynamic,
Yeah.
So that's why Trulkur, it makes sense, you know.
Yeah, it's like a continuing
Exactly,
cycle.
very dynamic.
And
right?
I think that's one of the very interesting things about it. We in modern yoga, they talk a lot about vinyasa, which is sort of the sequenced flow yoga.
Mhm.
You start with one posture, you move to another. And I think what's in contemporary sort of yogic studies, they're often looking at vinyasa yoga or sequenced yoga as something that really wasn't really begun in Indian yoga until the 20th century with Krishnamacharya and other yoga teachers. But we can see, for example, in this system, which was actually revealed by the Bhutanese treasure revealer, Tibetan Pemalingpa, from the 15th century, and then painted here in the 17th century on the walls of the Dalai Lama's temple, is actually showing a sequence of movements. So, starting, it's 21 movements, ending with a perfect 7-point meditation posture. So again, showing that you're using the body as a vehicle for entering into kind of the Buddha mind, going beyond your present state of consciousness. So I think
so that's we have Lujong, it's like a preparation, the body training. And then we have Zalong Trulkur, that's like advanced, Zalong Trulkur. And then the Zalong Trulkur you used for or enhance your like inner heat, Tummo heat, the blissful heat, or also used for later, because then especially so many of the Zalong Trulkurs are used for Tummo. And then once you are trained with Tummo, then you enter in the Karma Mudra. And then there, kind of your body bridges your mind, then like mind is kind of free from body, then your mind is in the state of bliss.
Yes.
So it goes like this. And then the Nejang, it's interesting because many people didn't know the word of Nejang. Ne means location, Jang means kind of purifying, like or cleaning the different part of our body. So it means like we kind of detox, detox, and you open, or unlock the blocked the channels. And once they're unlocked, then you can have inner, of course, the physical health, but also spiritually, you can have the inner visions and so on. So that's why Nejang is more healing. And Lujung is body exercise training, but it's kind of preparation. And then the higher level is Zalong.
Zalong and the Trulkur.
Exactly, Zalong Trulkur. And then the Zalong Trulkur, you see some of them, especially like, specialized how to unblock the chakras, 5 chakras. And then from that, and how you can really make the Tummo fire, the inner heat, can comes up. Because once the Tummo heat comes up, and then it melts our tigle, and then we can really experience the inner bliss, And then some parts is not only the generating the heat, then how do you control the tigle? So that's why I think in the Yotoninti, the way how it's explained that it's 2 different parts is very clear, Otherwise, sometimes we have many exercises, so we don't know where we're doing
what they're for and what the particular movements
of course,
are doing.
Many yoga texts, this is, if you do this, it's good for your stomach, good, that is good for the back, and for these problems, that problem. They talk about healing too, but that's not the goal,
Right. Yeah.
And so I think another reason, so you asked me why it's kind of secret, I think this is a very important question. And this is, I think it's very important question because in Tibet, even we do the 9 purification breathing, Indians, they do like this one, right? This one. Yeah. Which one do you do?
Well, there's different forms I've learned, but
exactly.
Essentially, there's many different ways. Sometimes you start right, left.
This is the simple one. Even we call Longro go to. Even this one you cannot show anyone. It's kind of secret, this and that. And so I'm happy His Holiness was showing this publicly.
This was a great moment when His Holiness showed. I think it was on a stage in Bombay to a big wide audience. He started to demonstrate these exercises.
So for some, like very, how do you say? Some maybe old generation, if they see His Holiness showing publicly, they kind of get shocked. I think he knows it's a moment we need to bring out. But also the interesting thing is why Tibetans saying, okay, the yogic exercise part is a secret, it's not how do you say, practice in the beginning, because in the beginning they focused on how to train the mind. or basic spiritual understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And today I saw one article, it's called the Yoga Ego.
Yoga
So
ego.
it's Yoga Ego. You know,
Uh-huh.
there are some people are saying, oh, you know, I practice yoga. They have
Yeah.
kind of like spiritual ego.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are saying like themselves, they are kind of, you know, superior than others.
Yeah.
You know, I like that title, Yoga Ego. You know,
Yeah.
it's a kind of spiritual ego
Yeah.
that they think they're very special.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
reality, a good yoga make us humble, right?
Exactly.
And so, that's, I think that's when I read that Yoga Ego article, it's kind of criticizing yoga practitioners in the
Because they get a
West.
little bit full of themselves, literally.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
then I thought, oh, you know, Tibetan tradition says it's a secret. It makes sense actually,
Mm-hmm.
because before you can practice the physical things like lujung or this, we need some basic, you know, mental training or emotional preparation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the goal? We do yoga. Is something for us or in general, you know, for harmony or also for helping others.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think this kind of like we have Mondro, preliminary practice, you know,
Mm-hmm.
preliminary practice. And we are talking about loving kindness and compassion, bodhicitta, these very essential and basic elements. I think it's very, very important, right? So and that makes, you know, even with that, if you do yoga, then it's kind of really spiritual yoga.
Mm-hmm.
A really kind of, I don't know, if you do Buddhist yoga, then it's really like a Buddhist. And also, I don't know, that's why, so from there, if you have a very deep kind of connection with your mind and with your really heart and emotion, you know, inner dimension connected with your physical body, you do something, then it's the harmony, right?
Yeah.
And then everything is kind of like, yeah, you know, the yoga is like your act of compassion and loving kindness, you see?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that part is important. That's why Tibetans say Ngondro, preliminary practice. You know?
And it's also the wonderful thing
and we talk about bodhicitta, right?
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah, you can say a little bit about bodhicitta. So.
Well, I was going to say with, you know, traditionally with the Trulkor, so the most advanced forms of these physical trainings, you actually, according to the different system, you would practice them not as yourself, but you would practice them as a deity. So you identify with Vajrayogini, you identify with Hayangriva or, you know, Chakrasamvara. So in other words, or even to undertake these practices. So when the bliss arises, you're not identifying with it personally. You're actually experiencing it as a Buddha. So all of these are different Tantric Buddhas whose minds are pervaded and actually inseparable from wisdom and you know, wisdom and compassion. So immediately as the bliss arises, it becomes a field and a flow of compassion. So that sort of prevents that you could say the downfall of becoming a spiritual ego, because you've already identified with a transpersonal Buddhist deity as your Buddha mind. You're undertaking it with Buddha mind, with bodhicitta, with the intention and mind of enlightenment, as opposed to trying just to become a spiritual super person.
Exactly.
I just want to say, I remember Trungpa, you know, Trungpa Rinpoche, in his earliest book, one of the early books on Tibetan Buddhism in the West, it was called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, where he talked about this problem of kind of spiritual ego, and he referred to it as I remember he referred to it as the state of Rudra, which he said it basically referred to it as becoming a spiritual ape, which I thought was just in other words, it was kind of a devolution. You sort of go from a human to a kind of more primitive form, and not in a positive sense. So there's always, I think, that danger, as you said, if one identifies with these things from a personal point of view, as opposed to from a mind of wisdom and compassion.
So I think this is the issue, like a kind of public misunderstanding about Tantra, you know. When you say Tantra, everybody thinks about like sex. And then other group says, oh, you know, Tantra, nothing to do about sex. And they're against, you know, to like kind of big, extreme like views. But Tantra, of course, we talk about sexualities because that's a part of a human emotion. You know, it's a psychological need, and also it's a physiologically we need. So that's why Tantra is not refusing or denying or suppressing anything. So who we are what we have, we work with that, with that circumstances, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I think the problem is, of course, Tantra, we talk about sexuality too, but it's not only sex,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why in the West, many people, they think, oh, Tantra is sex, and then they get stuck there,
Yeah.
with self and Tantra, okay,
Mm-hmm.
like me and my partner and sex, and then they kind of really like attached and stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then there's no liberation.
Yeah.
So I think similar way the yoga, okay, yoga, yes, it's a physical exercises,
Mm-hmm.
so I need to train my body, fitness. It's
Mm-hmm.
like kind of, fitness sport, it's kind of trendy, it's a fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I do this. And then again, the yoga practitioners, they get stuck there
Mm-hmm.
with the physical body and with movements.
Yeah.
So both sides. Some people, they stuck with name of Tantra with sex.
Mm-hmm.
Some people with the name of yoga, they stuck with physical dimension,
Yeah.
I think that is the problem.
Yeah.
So that's why if we talk of Buddha, that's the liberation. Then where is the liberation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We use our body and we use our channels and energies and practice yoga. As
Mm-hmm.
you are saying, like then we transform ourselves into the deity,
Mm-hmm.
and that deity is practicing the yoga.
Yes.
So in that moment already we are kind of free, from the concept of I, right?
Right.
So the I is a kind of already divine I.
Mm-hmm.
But then at end we need to, how do you say, we need to completely free ourselves from the I.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise the I is the strongest
Yeah.
prisoner,
Yeah.
the prison. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We get stuck there and we're blocked there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say, okay, I practice yoga, so I am stuck in my body.
Mm-hmm.
I practice Tantra, it's stuck somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's why if we don't have this mondro, the preliminary preparation
Mm-hmm.
about meditation of loving kindness, meditation on compassion, and for immeasurable. For
Yeah.
me, I love this for
Yeah.
immeasurable.
They're the complete path.
Exactly,
Ending with
yeah.
equanimity, which is the
Exactly.
great
Love,
quality.
compassion, joy, equanimity.
Exactly.
So we can see this, and also as a human quality, right?
Mm-hmm.
Humans, we need love, compassion, joy, and once we have these things, we need to share with others.
Yeah.
So if you see all yogic exercises and
Mm-hmm.
meditations and mantra and even tantra,
Mm-hmm.
or that sexual part, if you just see that way, then you transcend from this yourself. Then you get stuck with self, right?
Yeah.
So that's why in the Buddhism we have a self, like this relative self.
Mm-hmm.
But this relative self, if you meditate or we do yoga, it helps us. Then this self become the selflessness.
Exactly.
Yes.
In the same way in those four immeasurables, in the beginning, they're kind of contemplated
exactly
as ideals, but then in the end, after the whole path is complete, they are the result at the same time. Yeah. So then they're radiated and expressed, as opposed to having to be kind of imagined or just contemplated. They become actually the Buddha nature that you've unveiled through these practices.
Yeah. So exactly, like His Holiness always saying, the essence of Buddhism is compassion and emptiness.
Yes. Yeah.
So you don't like this word of emptiness, right? Shunyata.
Well, it's
voidness. I don't know which one you want to use.
Well, it's a complicated word because it has often can lead to wrong understanding. Emptiness is such a powerful experience. But then
then some people they say, oh, not everything emptiness, everything's fullness.
It's infinite potentiality.
So then I make a joke. Everything is full. Yes, everything is foolish.
Yeah.
But the fullness, empty, there is no difference.
No difference at all.
So that's why I'm just saying, like His Holiness often express the essence of Buddhism is the compassion and emptiness.
Yes.
And compassion is a human emotional quality, and emptiness is a quality of intelligence, understanding.
Yeah.
So that's why if we all do yogas, different, if we practice different kind of yogas or mantra, whatever we do, if we have these two foundations,
yes,
understanding of the nature of emptiness or voidness, and to having the perfect compassion, and then like we are bird, we have two wings, then we can fly.
Yeah.
Then we can fly with exercises, then we can fly with mantras. Yeah.
And remembering that sense of play, which is that sense of delight, which is often forgotten. And sometimes if spiritual traditions take themselves too seriously, they kind of, then you're kind of grounded. The wings aren't, you're not flowing, you're not flying. So yeah, that's the beauty of those four foundations, the four contemplations. And then
so that's why I think, in Tibetan Tantra, we focus a lot on this preliminary practice, so that takes lots of time. You really need to train your mind. That's a mind training process. I think this is the reason, to say, okay, you have to be ready for the preliminary steps, and then you'll reach the higher practices,
Sure.
So I think that's one of the main reason it says the yogas are secret. Yeah. Otherwise, it can be misused.
It can lead to this kind of spiritual inflation, where the ego becomes not transcended, but actually expanded. Definitely. But I think, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama has also said, that, we've kind of in an age now when things are no longer, in a sense, secret. The information is there. It's just, so he said, that the best thing one can do is to make it as clear as possible what the purposes are of these practices, how they can be practiced with the right understanding and with the right outcome, to avoid the kind of traps that might otherwise arise from them. And
he often tells us, we should be the Buddhist of 21st century.
Yes, exactly. Not get stuck in past. So, no, and I think this is which is what I find so amazing about the Yutok Nintik tradition, even though, the Nejang tradition that you're describing, also from the time of Kalachakra, even a century earlier, 11th century, even 10th century. I mean, these were really almost things that you could imagine having been developed now for 21st century. Because as you said, even the Nundro, you're talking about the preliminary practices that take so long, and most of the lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, you accomplish them with a complete focus in 1 week in the Yutok Nintik tradition. And the beauty of that is that it was a tradition that was developed, not for monks or nuns, but for actually working professionals, healers, who were educated and who had to apply most of their time to working in the world with their clients, with their patients. So I think the beauty of this tradition is that it's really well adapted to the 21st century in a way that's maybe even more so than any other tradition.
Maybe, according to like Yuto's prophecy, I always say like Yuto saw the future, He said, means future people, they want everything fast. So that's one of the characteristic of 21st century, fast.
Right.
Fast internet, faster food, faster car.
Faster the better.
So why not, faster spiritual too? But I think it's important we go step by step, right? So in this book, I saw many amazing like images and photos and these things. And so you have really met like, how do you say, like tantric yoga practitioners, right? You have many amazing photos, like male practitioners. There are yogis, yoginis, and monks and nuns. Can you tell us some stories about that?
So this book, which which Dr. Inde kindly introduced, is really something that I hadn't intended to write it. It's something that in a way reflects the last 30 years of my life, in the sense that having been part of this tradition, and then also being encouraged by various teachers, including His Holiness Dalai Lama, that this more hidden aspect of Tibetan Buddhism should be made more clear and more available. And so
he said that?
He said that very specifically. So the earlier book that I did, which was on the Lukang murals, he literally said, time of secrecy is over. He said, that was on the murals of the
secret temple of Dalai Lama.
The sixth Dalai Lama. So there are a lot of images from that temple, which was painted. The wall paintings were made at the end of the 1600s. So at the time of between the fifth and the sixth Dalai Lama. And they were an extraordinary set of murals that were created to illustrate the most esoteric practices of Tibet, according to the Nyingma, the Dzogchen tradition. So one whole wall is mostly dedicated to the physical yogic practices that we've been talking about. So training the body in order to reveal the nature of the mind. But then on another mural, the Western mural is
There are three walls.
three
right?
walls. So one is all
I remember. Yeah,
one is all Mahasiddhas.
Yes, yes.
Who are actually Mahasiddhas are the great
84 Mahasiddhas,
male and
great
female yogis of ancient India and Tibet, who interestingly none of them were really, at the time of their realization, none of them were monks or nuns. They were, and the greatest of them, Saraha, who was the one who sort of left the monastery to then he married the daughter of an arrowsmith, and famously said, "Only now am I truly a monk." In other words, only now do I truly understand the nature of reality and the path. And it was interesting, the sixth Dalai Lama, who was very fond of archery, was also considered to be an emanation of Saraha. And so in that sense, he also embodied the whole path of Saraha, in sense of giving up his monastic vows and becoming a tantric yogi. So we see that also reflected in the sixth Dalai Lama, who became, and even as the current Dalai Lama has said, the sixth Dalai Lama was meant to have actually had offspring. He would have become the seventh Dalai Lama. So it wouldn't have been based on reincarnation after that. It would have been based on hereditary. So sort of following the tradition like in Sakya. So the sixth, that holds one wall of showing basically how spiritual practice can be undertaken without renouncing worldly life, but by integrating with whatever it is one naturally finds oneself doing. So the Mahasiddhas were kings, they were fishermen, they were yogins, they were sesame seed grinders, they were many, many things. They didn't have to change their profession. But just to go to the one mural that's the most extraordinary is focusing on the practices of Dzogchen, and particularly the visionary
like
practices.
Embryology.
Yeah.
It starts with embryology, and then the visionary practices, and then Rainbow Body.
Yes, and so the embryology, as you were explaining, is interesting because in spiritual practice, there's almost a reverse embryology. You're bringing yourself back to a kind of
so we have this, in the Tantric Buddhism, we have two main paths. We call Kerim, the creation stage, and then we have the Zorim, completion stage. So the creation stage is, you go back into time, the moment when you are created, like when you are conceived. So that's why from there, actually in the meditative state, you go back there, you purified your mother's womb, and then the sperm and eggs are manifesting like sun and the moon, and then your unconsciousness is like a syllable hung or then this, and then your body, yourself is becoming a deity, and then you are born. And then until now, it's like a manifesting as a perfect deity. So that's why this Vajrabodhi expression, it says, we were born with a bliss, we live with a bliss, and we die with a bliss. So that's why the creation stage referred to about the birth, and completion stage referred about the death. So once you know about your past, about your future, like 100% of your life, and then, 360 degree of your life is in your palm. And then when in the tantric view, when we say now and here, that is called now and here. And the level of 360 degree, you have no dramas in your past, you have no fears and worries in your future. Like 100% your life is transparent for you. And then that kind of now and here, you are here and you are everywhere. That's also called like Tantra, Tan is expansion, Tra means liberation, like expanded liberation.
Exactly.
So otherwise, sometimes when we say like now and here, it means like now and here,
In a limited sense.
Exactly. Now and this space and here, you stay now and here. It's kind of like mindful practice,
But it can become narrow too.
Exactly. You kind of been, and sometimes we can stuck in the now and here, but we are not now and here. We had our past, we had our future. But then if you understand, if you travel into the past and future, when you becoming everything one, and then when we say now, in the now, there's past, there's a future too, right? So that's why in this Tibetan yoga, when we talk about this creation stage and completion stage, it's really completes, our, how do you say, the cycle of the human life. So that's why here it starts from the embryology,
Mm-hmm.
the Dzogchen, the wall, the
Yeah.
painting,
Yeah.
and then the practices, and then the rainbow body.
Yes,
You
exactly.
see the birth and the
Mhm.
practice and liberation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, I always think about that when what's called creation phase, but it's really like a recreation phase. It's like you're actually a kind of a rebirth process,
Mhm. Yeah,
using the mind, using the imagination, and then, as you say, in the completion
Well,
stage, it's all energetic in a way.
yeah. So this rebirth is like, okay, we call it a rebirth,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's not a rebirth. Okay, this rebirth is the true birth.
Yes.
Because our physical birth is the fake birth.
Mm. Okay.
So we are kind of this existence of illusion. We got lost in this illusion,
Mm-hmm.
this kind of karmic self.
Mm-hmm.
And then we need to go back and to come back with the original yoga.
Yeah.
So that's why we have deity yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Deity yoga means the practice of deities, right?
Yeah, you're sort of born again as a deity.
Exactly, deity
divine
yoga.
self. Yeah.
Then we have Adakini yoga.
Mm-hmm.
Kandro means Lama Yidam Kandro. We have Lami Nenjur, Guru Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
We have Dakini Yoga, and we have Deity Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 yogas are the part of the creation stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then the 6 yogas are part of the completion stage.
Mm.
So altogether it's 9 yogas, right?
Right.
And yeah, that's what we can say in the Tibetan yoga process.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the how do you say, 2 mudras, Karma mudra and Maha mudra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then if you are the Nyingma school, you can add Ati yoga.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, that's the complete path, as you said.
Yeah. So this, you're talking about the wall. So the Dzogchen part, I remember. There's this embryology part.
Yeah.
You saw the painting. There many people are kind of standing. You see some of them, they have lungs, some of them heart. So that's the embryo.
Yes.
They're explaining every week, like which part of body
is arising.
Arising,
that's in my other book, not in this one, where it shows the whole creation of the inner channels and the birth.
More about,
Yeah.
We have one book here.
Yeah.
The Dalai Lama's secret temple. Yeah, this one. Yeah, I'll show you.
Yeah. So that has this wonderful sense of the way the channels form in the body, and the rebirth process. I don't think that's the beginning of it, and
this one.
Yeah.
You see, lungs and heart, the embryo part. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's wonderful about the paintings is they really, particularly in this temple, they're quite unique. I mean, of course, you had the paintings of the 79 medical scroll paintings that illustrate the Tibetan medical system. But these wall paintings that were created around the same time, around 1700, they kind of go beyond that and showing the way the body, essentially, physical body, through these practices eventually becomes a rainbow. It becomes a light body, and how the physical elements are essentially also, you could say, coarse expressions of a light body, and that's what the practices ultimately lead to.
Yeah. So this is the wonderful book.
Yeah.
So you are saying the one wall is the part of the Ati yoga practice.
Yeah. So one wall is.
One is the Tsalong Cholkor. This one.
Yeah. So this one is here. That's showing
embryology.
Embryology.
Yeah. You see, the couple, they are sleeping here, and the consciousness is like a head. He's entering there. And then the embryo, the baby, they're growing like different part of the baby here. Shows week by week. And then here she gives birth, you see, gives birth.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so that's why it's really amazing. Actually, I often say, Tantra, it's a education system. It's a very complex education system. Some people do think, why you call it education? Like education is a kind of like a, modern word. We use this. Ancient time, there is no education. Of course, there's education. That's why we call it jut, continuation, the continuation of the transmission of the knowledge, right? If we study medicine, we have to study from our professors and our teachers. Same way, if we study Tantra Yoga, we have to study from qualified masters. You know, we cannot say, okay, I read a book and I can do yoga. I read a, you know, I read a book, surgery book. Now I can open your heart. Would you trust that surgeon? The same way somebody says, oh, I read the yoga book, I learned by myself. You want to learn yoga from me? So that's why I think it's really important we understand that yoga tradition or tantric tradition, it is a very serious education, you know.
And it also, that refers to the etymology. The word education in English language actually comes from the Latin educate. To educate means to bring out what is within. So in a beautiful way, it's not just like we sometimes think of education as just, you know, getting the mind filled with, you know, with facts and information, but the real depth of the meaning of the word education is to bring out your inner qualities. So in that sense, you know, a tantric education it really fits because it's about, you know, the revealing of the inner Vajra body as opposed to just our normal physical body, which we sometimes think is all that's there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So very much.
And then the deity yoga, we have the Western word. How do you say the God in me, within me?
Oh,
Enthusiasm.
Well, yeah, we were talking about that word enthusiasm, which is a beautiful word from the ancient Greek. Means that you know, this expression of the God within, and so that means that sense of play, of joy.
Exactly. God within. So God within. When we talk about the deity yoga, deity within, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we should be filled with enthusiasm and excitement and joy.
Exactly. So that's why, if you are trained in the Ngondro, you know, you know, the loving kindness, bodhicitta training, once you really have this kind of deep sense of, you know, love and compassion for yourself and for others, and you have this kind of, you are enthusiastic to learn the yoga, the three yogas, deity yoga, guru yoga, you know, like you're kind of excited, right? Enthusiastic, and then six yoga, then makes sense, right?
Yeah. It's a whole program. It's a course of study.
Exactly. So that's why I think sometimes it's missing that line, you know. You just go there, okay, it's like a sport, it's a gym, you know. There are so many sports I can choose, there are so many types of dances I can choose. I just choose one I like and I just dance. When I'm dancing, I'm a dancer. When I'm finished, I'm the ordinary. That's what we think, you know. When I'm practicing yoga, I'm a yogi or yogini. When I'm not practicing, I'm an ordinary person. It's not like that, right? There's the continuation. So we have the, how do you say, a nyamshak. Nyamshak means the moment when you meditate or the moment when you practice yoga. And then jeto means when after you come back from that. So when you come back from that, you still have the, how do you say, you maintain that same quality, you know.
Exactly. There should be no
exactly
no break.
That's why, like, after meditation or yoga, you kind of contemplate everything is like a dream. You're in a dream dimension, right? So that's already continuation of the dream yoga practice, or, you know.
No, wonderful. Were there any other questions that people had from last time that we were asked to address? I'm just curious if that was...
Okay, is there any questions? So we can... I will check if there are any questions. Okay, they are talking about the books. I don't see any questions.
Okay.
So then another thing is, I think also the reason why we have six yogas, you know. I know you mentioned six yogas a lot here, right? Especially
there's a chapter. There's a chapter devoted to each of those.
So many people, they have questions. Why six yogas, right? Like Ashtanga Yoga is 8 limbs, and then Tibetans, why six? Why six is important? Because the really interesting thing is, it is 6 yogas, but it's in a 3 aspect, you know. So one yoga is about our day, one yoga is about the night, and one yoga is the moment of death, right? So what you have in your life, right? What you have in your life, you have only day and night, and you repeat the day and the
Yeah,
night.
it's an endless cycle.
Yeah, exactly, right? What
Yeah.
you have, you know,
Yeah.
what you have
That's
now,
that's
right?
what we have
You
to
have
work
day
with.
and
Yeah,
night, 24 hours, right? You have time, you have 24 hours.
Right.
So in this, or you the daytime, you are active daily, or you are sleeping and active in the night. So that's why we have in the life, we have day and the night. And then end of the life, we have the death,
Yes.
you see?
Right.
So that's very interesting. Because of course we had a birth, we were born, and there is a embryology birth process. So that part of the practice, the yoga, we did already with deity yoga.
Right.
And then, you know, deity yoga, you can manifest as a male deity or union deity or female deity. So if your deity is a female deity, also it's called the Dakini yoga. So you did deity yoga and Dakini yoga, and then you have a teacher, master who is guiding you, and that with that you have the Guru yoga. So we have 3 yogas in creation stage, right?
Exactly.
We also call Zawasum, you know, 3 roots.
Yeah.
So we have the Zawasum, and you did that. It means you purified your rebirth process already. Future is cleared up.
Yeah.
Everything is clean.
Yeah.
And now we are talking like kind of now and the future. And what you have now, you have 24 hours. But 24 hours divided in day and the night. Then, you know, by the seasons can be one is shorter and longer, more or less is the same. So then the day and night, there are 2 yogas for the daytime, Tummo and illusory body yoga.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
Tummo and illusory body yoga. And then 2 yogas in the night, dream yoga and clear light yoga. So while we are sleeping, only 2 things can happen. Or we are in the deep sleep state,
Right.
or we are in the dreaming state, REM state, right? There are only 2 possibilities. Sleep, no dreams, always dreams. That's it. So in this case, the sleeping part is called the clear light yoga, and dreaming part is dream yoga. So, you know, actually I call it 2 in 1. You know, you are dreaming and you are practicing.
Yeah, exactly.
Dream yoga, right? You have to be lucid and, you know, transform your dreams and the things. Clear light, also clear light yoga, you are sleeping in the deep, but also meditating, resting.
Yeah.
So 2 in 1.
Yeah.
And then in our daytime, you know, normally we say our navel chakra is active. So in the dream, its throat chakra is active. In the sleep, is heart chakra is active. And in the daytime now, our navel chakra is active because our energy and consciousness is more active there. Actually, scientifically, it makes sense because our belly is called the second brain. It has so many nerves and neurons there, right?
Right.
So it's you know, it has the feeling, like gut feeling. Do you say that?
Yeah, gut feeling, absolutely.
Feeling. Yeah, when you are in love, what happens? Butterflies. Exactly, the location of butterfly.
Yeah.
So that is our most experiences are coming when we are awake, and that's why the Tummo fire is located there. This you know, this and this part was explained by Rechongpa, the Milarepa's disciple. Actually, it's very clear. So you see, and then in our daytime, we are always engaging with ourself, right? This self and my, and then who is this self, right? And this self, or the one in the dream, the one in the thought, the one in the past, the one in the future.
Yeah.
So that's called illusory body or magic body, to understand who are we, you know, who I am, the ultimate nature.
Yeah.
And so these 2 are the daytime, but then in the night we have sleep and this. So that makes 4 yogas, right?
Right.
And then the 2 are waiting for us.
Right.
The moment of the death.
End of life experiences.
End of the life experiences, exactly. Yeah. So if you want to have a mindful and a speedy, how do you say, painless death, and then you eject your consciousness with the Powa yoga. You do the Powa. But if you want to have more experiences,
right,
the process of the clear light and Bardo journey, then you can learn the Bardo. So that's why you see, when you really look this way, the 6 yogas are designed as 3 most important moments of life: day, night, and the death, the
Exactly.
moment of death.
And what's also wonderful, they're actually sort of moving up progressively through the chakra system.
Yes, yes,
You know,
exactly.
you've got the, you know, the daytime, the navel center, and then the clear light, and then the dream at throat and poa, and then the bardo kind of beyond the body in that way. So there's also a kind of symmetry to the whole process, and connected not only with, you know, with, in that sense, with 5 chakras, but also with like the 6 lokas that you have in the, you know, in the Dzogchen traditions.
Exactly. And then, so these 6 yogas are very much explained by, as you mentioned, like Naropa, you know, Niguma, and then in the Yuto Nyingti, we have Yuto 6 yogas. And normally these parts are more explained by Kagyu school, you know, Karjupa.
Right.
So Karjupa later became many schools, you know, 12 schools, the Karma Kagyu, Jikun Kagyu,
Shangpa
Kagyu, Drukpa Kagyu in Bhutan, you know, become many 12 schools. And they are really expert in 6 yogas. But the origin is coming from Milarepa, and actually Milarepa's 6 yoga teachings are very direct and very clear. And then also Rechompa, his disciples, his 6 yogas are very practical, very beautiful. And then by Gampopa, right? And then spread it everywhere. And then the older school, the Nyingmapa, as I mentioned, we are talking about this Maha Yoga, Anu Yoga, and Ati Yoga. You know, the Maha Yoga is the deity yoga and expressing the anger. So Anu Yoga actually refers to the Karma Mudra. It can be also basis Tummo. You know, some part of Tummo is similar Kundalini, right? Some people do know Kundalini.
Yeah.
So what do you think the relationship between Kundalini and Tummo Yoga?
Well, I think if we look at how Tummo was translated from Sanskrit texts like Hevajra, it was Chandali. So Chandali literally meaning the blazing one, you know, the fiery one. And so Tummo literally has that meaning of kind of the fierce feminine, the blazing female. So I think the translation from, so the question then would be the relationship of Chandali and Kundalini, which are both sort of female goddess energies, you could say, within the physical body. So I think they're connected. They're certainly this. But you were also describing how in the Yuttha-Nintake, it's describing actually the word Kundalini as something separate from the Chandali.
Kundali, yes, we have this expression of Kundali, Amrita Kundali.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, especially in the Nyingma tradition, we talk about this Maha Yoga tradition. So we are talking about 8 fierceful deities, Herukas. And then one is we have in the head, that's Yamantaka. And then in the speech is Hayagriva. And this is Heruka, Yantal Heruka. And in the navel chakra is Dutsi Chilwa, Tibetan, is Amrita Kundali. So that Amrita, actually, it's a Dutsi, you know. Dutsi is the nectar, right? So Kundali means kind of coiling. Or when you put a fluid, how do you call it? Snake is coiling, right?
Yeah, it's a coiling up, exactly. A spiral.
When you pour the liquid, how do you call it?
You stir, to stirring.
No, not stirring. You just pour it.
You pour it, yes. And then...
Now, if snake is there, this in the circle, that's coiling.
It's coiling, yes.
So if you pour the water just stay in the bottom. Do you have a name for that? So in Tibetan word, the chilwa is a drul chilwa means snake is coiling.
Okay.
Chu chilwa means like water is there, you know, kind of water is kind of coiling.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The water is kind of in a spinning or something.
Oh, just staying there.
They're staying there.
Exactly. Chu chilwa, you know, kind of spinning and chu chilwa. And like if you talk about the members in Bhutan, where Pamalingpa, he jumped in the, they call it a lake. We call it so,
it's actually
but
like a gorge water.
Yeah, it's like a water circle. So how do you call it?
A whirlpool.
Whirlpool. So that's the chilwa, you see?
Yes.
Chu chilwa.
Exactly.
Whirlpool. So that's why in the, so we call Dutsi chilwa is like the whirlpool of the nectar.
Yeah.
Actually, the chilwa also Kundali.
Yes.
You see, Amrita Kundali. So we call it Amrita Kundali. And then the base chakra is Vajrakilaya. And then there are other like 3, how do you say, Jiktemba, like karmic deities. 5 enlightened deities, jhana deities, and 3, this altogether is 8. So that's why when we talk about this Amrita Kundali, very much connected with healing, you know. That's why there's a, dutsi, amrita,
Yeah.
nectar. Nectar
Yeah.
is for healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also it's interesting in the Kundalini, they talk about the snake is calling.
Mm.
But snake can be a symbol of healing too.
Yeah.
But what I have found in the Yuto tradition, and the Yuto says, once the central channel is opened,
Mm-hmm.
through like Tummo and the yogas and so on, then then you can like visions or dreams of snakes,
Mm.
and the snakes are coming to biting you.
Yeah.
But in that case, it's not like a snake energy is there, but it's a sign of that our central channel is opened.
Exactly. And we see that, like, for
So-
example, here's an 11th century
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
painting from Western Tibet that's quite rare, because although this is clearly a Tibetan Buddhist, Tantric Buddhist, you actually see that shows three snakes, particularly the sort of golden uncoiling serpent or snake in the center, and then kind of the red and white serpent snakes on either side that are actually, it shows, if you look very closely, they're sort of closing the side channels to allow the energy to move into the central channel. So this is sort of an interesting example of the kind of a Kundalini depicted as an uncoiling serpent, but in the context of Tantric Buddhist yoga.
Yeah, this is also interesting because the right one is the red. So
Mm.
our central channel, our right channel is red, left
Mhm.
channel is white, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in this case, it's also like the channels.
Mm. Exactly. And
Exactly,
then allowing for
exactly.
the
And then
channels
the middle one is the central channel.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is coiled in the bottom part.
Mm.
It's very interesting. And then normally this one has this, 64 petals and these things.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
There is a connection.
And I think, it's also interesting, and I think it was, this early 11th, 12th century Tantra that was called the Amrita Siddhi, so the Dutse Drupa,
Mhm.
was it's been recognized now as the first Indian tantric text that describes particular physical postures that are used in order to open the central channel. So they're like proto Trulkor practices. There's a Mahamudra, they call it Mahamudra, but it's actually a particular, like actually Mahamudra in Hatha Yoga, where the one heel is brought down to the perineum and you stretch it. Yeah, and then it has the the other posture, which is like the Uddiyana Bandha, where you're drawing in the abdomen, as well as the Jalandhara Mudra, where you're locking the neck and then pulling up on the perineum with the Muladhara Tantra.
Mhm.
So you basically this posture is also used, and then the third is the Mahaveda, which is basically a kind of just dropping gently onto the base of the spine in order to move the energy up. So those are recognized as being the first descriptions of physical yogic practices in order to awaken or bring the energy up through the central core of the body. And in the Amrita Siddhi also literally means the perfection of the nectar. So it's also describing an inner sun in the pelvic cavity, and then the sun, the moon, the lunar orb at the top.
Similar, yeah.
So it's exactly that. It's using the sun and the moon as to create a kind of to awaken the nectar. And this is but you're using certain physical postures to accelerate that process. So it seems that that's the first, at least in terms of textual sources, the first indication of using physical yogic practices in order to awaken essentially the tummo or the kundalini or this inner energy.
Also, it's similar to karma mudra.
Same basic process.
Yeah. The solar energy
So
goes
the
up,
lunar,
melting the lunar.
yeah, that seems to be the basic.
And also the interesting part is it's true in Tibet, when we do this very like Trulkur dynamic exercises, it says, the young kids, let's say from 8 years to 16 years, it's true. Now in the West, this acrobatic, exercises only done by young kids, right?
Yeah.
So similar way that Zalon Trulkur is done by young kids. But then some people say, oh, Zalon Trulkur, I can't do it, like it's not something for me. Oh, Tummo, there are too many exercises. Oh, Zalon Trulkur. Actually, it's not like that. If you really know how do you say the Tummo? Because in the Tummo practice, we have this physical part too,
Mm.
physical tummo exercises and so on. But we have some tummo, just a breathing exercise,
Mhm.
more controlling about your breath.
Right. So according to your capacity,
Exactly.
you
It's
know,
not,
so it doesn't all have to be, for example,
yeah.
like in this one here, we're seeing a very advanced practitioner doing these yogic drops where he'll go into full lotus posture
Yeah,
in the air
yogic,
and then
yeah.
land on the mat. And this is a way to basically spread the tummo fire through the body, but
Yeah,
it's not for everybody.
That exercise scares everyone,
Yeah.
especially people with physical conditions. Is no, Tibetan yoga, I prefer something else.
Exactly. So it's sort of like the warning
Yeah,
sign.
yeah, exactly. That's why there is kind of like some this tummo, for example, are really kind of physical. We know if we train our muscles and so on, that physically we can generate the heat. But then the other part is we are not focusing too much the physical part, the breathing part, controlling breath, and we can do that. And then even some people, they can't do much the breathing one, and they can do the mental tummo, So we have lungi tummo, we have tigle tummo, and then one is called the yeshe tummo. Yeshe tummo is jhana, enlightened tummo. So that's more referred to the meditation, contemplation. That's why I think today we have this kind of misunderstanding, and misconception. This tummo, oh no, exercises, I cannot do it.
Right.
Oh, tummo is not for you guys, only for young people. Oh, this and that, There is a kind of judgments without knowing what really, whole picture of
the
tummo,
full options. And the
Exactly.
same way with the posture, a lot of people will say they can't, the body doesn't do that, or if they can't go into full lotus, and then it becomes an excuse for not doing it. Because as you said, you can practice it according to your capacity and still get, extraordinary results.
Yeah, so you have really met the people who are in caves and monasteries or nunneries, they are meditating like 6 yogas, right? In Bhutan.
That was
mainly in Bhutan, right?
Well, a lot is in Bhutan, but there's also a lot from, Nepal and Tibet, because I lived in Nepal for over 20 years and went every year to Tibet. So I had, and I was always seeking out these kinds of practitioners. So it was a great opportunity. And I took, photographs during that whole time. So this book is basically, as I kind of said, it was put together from decades of my own personal practice and personal research. We have, people like this, for example, was a great yogi who was at that time in retreat.
Who stayed in that cave?
That cave is actually the enlightenment cave of Yeshe Tsogyal, so Padmasambhava's greatest disciple in Tibet. This is about 17,000 feet high in Terdrum, and actually this is where she practiced. This is where she practiced Tummo to reach enlightenment. So an extraordinary place. And then you can see the yogi there with the red and white shawl, the Nakpa shawl. And so he invited me to come and spend the night there when he was about to start his retreat. So this is the kind of experiences that I had that led to being able to write about. And, same thing exactly as he said. They said, about these being secret practices. He said, unless people really understand the Tsa Lung and Tigle in their bodies, the energy flows in their body, you can never really meditate successfully. So again, he also had this I thought, quite enlightened and expansive vision that the path really has to begin not just with the 4 contemplations, but with actually preparing our bodies in order to be able to become vehicles for deeper forms of meditation. So a lot in Bhutan, and I think Bhutan is, as we know, we've talked about a lot, is sort of the living Himalayan Buddhist kingdom at this stage, because so much has changed in Tibet itself. So a lot of these traditions are still being continued there and accessible there and promoted there in a way unlike any other part of the world. So I think Bhutan is really a sanctuary for this kind of tantric yoga.
Safe, people stay in the caves, no?
People still stay in the caves, no, very much. It's
because when I was 1995, I was in a cave in Chimpu. So I went, that's there are like almost 100 caves, and I was very lucky. I stayed in a cave. Melongpu was Drupchen Melong Dorje. he was the master of Nyarjana Kumaranza, Longchenpa's root guru, So it's a huge cave. I was really lucky, I stayed there a few weeks. And that time Tibet was very nice. I was in Lhasa and the college, and holiday times, you go around, you receive teachings, and then also stay in the caves. I did my Guru Yoga and also Julin and these practices. But then later the rules are changed, and then you can, you even it's an empty cave, you can stay there. You have to show the ID card and these things. Become very complicated. That's why now it's a little bit sad. If I go now back to Tibet, in central Tibet, I can stay in the caves.
Now, I was fortunate. My training also was in caves, but in Nepal, like in the hidden land of Yomo, and it's where my teacher, Rinpoche, he sent me to caves all the time, to different caves. So it was.
But in Yomo also there are many caves.
Many caves, yeah. Well, I'd say many, but there were some very specific ones that were also described in the Naik and in the texts as places that were particularly associated with particular kinds of practices. So he sent me to a cave there, 2 different ones to stay, and then also in the hidden land of Kimalung, up on the Tibetan border in northern Nepal. There were also in that place 2 different caves.
And the Yolmo is considered as a hidden land.
Yolmo is a hidden land, and this Kimalung was a hidden land. So
hidden land of who? Which deity?
So hidden land meaning they were places that Padmasambhava had in the 8th century described as places that would be sanctuaries for meditation and Buddhist practice in future generations when conditions on the earth became more difficult. And he also described them as places where, for example, he said, one week of meditation in such these hidden lands that he had blessed would be equivalent to 1 year somewhere else. So the idea was that by going to these places and practicing, particularly in these caves in the hidden lands, you could accomplish very rapidly what might otherwise take a long time. So Chatra Rinpoche definitely had that view that the elements, the physical elements in these hidden lands were very powerful. So as your own body and mind becomes in resonance with those places, many different nyam, many different meditation experiences arise very, very naturally and very rapidly. So that's why he kept sending me to caves.
How long did you stay there?
Well, each time was not, was a couple months.
That's a lot.
Yeah. The first one was a month, and then I stayed, longer in other places.
So you wrote this book too, The Heart of the World. So this is another book about a hidden land.
Yeah. So this was again over many years. As I was researching the yogic practices, I was also looking at the tradition of Beyu, as it was described, the hidden lands, and these are, in many ways, we know the word Shangri-La in the Western tradition, but that whole idea of a place where, kind of outside ordinary time and space is very much what the original Beyu text, dating back to the time of Padmasambhava in the 8th century, are describing. So this book is a kind of a quest to find the geographical sources of this idea of Shangri-La or Shambhala in the physical landscapes of the Himalayas.
Was difficult to enter there?
Some of them were very difficult. Yeah, these were also quite extraordinary journeys.
So your journey was for how many days?
Well, each trip was maybe a month or more. And this describes a series of 10 journeys into particularly the hidden land of Pemaku, which is described as the body of Vajrayana. So basically, it's really a yogic, so pilgrimage becomes a yoga, because as you travel into
traditionally the Pemaku is a part of Zari, right?
It's not part of Tsari particularly. It's actually east from Tsari. It's very close to Tsari.
Close to Tsari.
And it's also connected to the same goddess. But it's kind of so it's connected, and people often did go on pilgrimage to Tsari and Pemaku together. But when you go through Pemaku, you're essentially going from the crown chakra of Dorje Pamo down through her, and sort of almost a symbolic rebirth from her bhaga. So that's the idea of the pilgrimage, that you connect in the landscape or all of the different chakras simultaneously. So it's
Yeah, so the best is we do Tibetan yogas in the hidden lands.
well, that would be best, but the hidden lands are everywhere.
Yeah.
Once we open them in ourselves,
Yeah,
then they
yeah.
manifest around us.
But we
in our
always
experience.
need that first stage, you know,
Well,
we have to
yeah,
be a special
Yeah,
place.
yeah. I mean, I was lucky those days it was possible, and now these
Yeah,
places are
exactly.
kind
Yeah,
of
I think you're
closed
really
down.
lucky.
Yeah, I was
No,
lucky that time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think, what's wonderful is that, particularly what you've brought out with the Nejang practices, it's a very accessible, without all of these extremely challenging and, powerful dynamic practices involving the BEP, the yogic falls. The Nejang, coming from one of the greatest and the last of the Buddhist tantras, the Kala Chakra, a method of self-healing that then naturally includes, the kumbhakas, the pumchen,
Mhm.
that can be then the foundation for advancing through all of this, the foundation for Tummo, the foundation for all of the 6 yogas. So I think for people who are practically interested in entering into the path of Tibetan yoga, that your book Nejang is
in a
really
simple way.
well. It's the foundation. We all have to.
Yeah.
Everything's simple in the beginning, but I think this is, because unless our bodies are healthy and flexible, then the more advanced practices aren't really achievable. So I think this is really a great.
My teacher Anila was there.
Yes, people telling us about yoginis, and some of your greatest teachers were also female.
Yeah.
So,
okay, great.
Good. Anyway,
thank you very much.
Thank you
And we thought to answer some questions, but it's a little bit difficult to read it, so so hopefully you're leaving, you're going
tomorrow, back to
tomorrow.
Scotland. Yeah,
but hopefully we can do some
we can do it with
other
a split screen.
Exactly. So we'll continue.
Very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you